So, retail sales coming in a little bit mixed. We've just had some data from the US suggesting that month on month, retail sales came in higher. And then the actual main data that the Fed looks at, of course, is the core retail sales that came in lower. What does it mean for Bitcoin, guys? Well, Bitcoin seems to be doing its own thing, but we did have some big movements in the stock market in the Asian session. NASDAQ and S&P have gapped up quite significantly. So given that we've just had the data come out, this is where the market's effectively saying, okay, is the economy actually starting to struggle? We're going to be diving into what's going on with Nvidia today, because things are starting to slow down in that very large market cap of a stock. And we're going to be paying attention to why the Taiwan Semiconductor Index could be a key metric in letting us know where we are with the AI sector. More on that, we're going to dive into what we can expect from the markets today. We're going to have a look at some news that's coming out about cryptocurrency. We've got some more buying in Bitcoin. So that's going to be a very interesting one to discuss very, very shortly. I'm going to highlight a few key levels on Bitcoin and what I expect to happen with Bitcoin, where I think it's going to stop at this certain price point before we do get a little bit of a correction. Don't worry, guys. Bitcoin can't keep on going up as much as we would like it to. I expect a little bit of a retrace to come into play. So if you are new to today's live stream, welcome. Make sure you're liking and subscribing. We've got a very big live happening tomorrow. We are heading into the eve of the FOMC, guys, and it's going to be a very interesting time in the market. I'll be very surprised if the market really does do anything today. I mean, if they're going to really move assets and factor in the idea of what's going on with the FOMC and the anticipation of an interest rate cut, then I think they should be using today as that time to move the markets. But they might actually just keep it sideways. And we know Bitcoin can do that for quite some time. So let's get with the program, guys. Let's find out exactly what's been going on and what can happen next. Here we go. So in front of you, yes, forget XRP, please. So in front of you, we've got the data that's just come out. Core retail sales month on month, 0.2% with a projection of 0.4%. And then retail sales came in 0.7. So it's like the economy is starting to give investors the idea of, okay, you're all right, given that we do have high interest rates and inflation's coming around. These readings right here do give us the impression that investors might be thinking that in the future, there could be something going off with the interest rates. How can we justify that? The 2-year yield and the 10-year yield. You can see that both the 2-year and the 10-year yields are actually trading at significant levels. They've been just done a big spike to 4.3%. And usually when you see that happening in the yields, especially the 2-year and the 10-year, you've got to be very careful because investors' expectations of future interest rates could be showing that it's looking like it's going to be higher. That could mean that they could either increase the interest rates, similar to what they did in 1970, in the time when there was stagflation. And in 74, they increased the interest rates from 5%, and then they just marked it up from there. And the market was not particularly happy about that because they were of the induction, or the belief, sorry, that they were going to be expecting interest rates to be cut. So we'll be paying close attention to the 2-year and the 10-year yield as we go into FOMC tomorrow, because this will give us the idea if the Federal Reserve is going to be kind enough to cut the interest rates just that little bit more. In other news itself, guys, we've had some interesting flavor happening right here. You can see top Russian general is killed in a bomb blast in Moscow. It says Ukraine official says Kiev was behind the assassination of Igor Krylov, head of nuclear, chemical, and biological defense forces. So it's all going to be, we're probably going to play this Cold War kind of story. And I would advise that many traders who are looking at gold, you've effectively got an event that they could be playing into right now. Given that gold is coming back down, the market hasn't really reacted too much to this because we haven't really heard any retaliation as such. But I could assume that there's going to be some form of discussion about a potential retaliation. So I would be paying close attention to how gold is behaving. You can see on the higher time frames, gold is currently pulling back from its significant highs, but it's still in a valid range. I believe that this is being primed for FOMC and, of course, the Bank of Japan. We're going to wait to know if that's going to be the case, because if the FOMC does reveal to us that they're going to be cutting the interest rates going into 2025, that means the expectation of yield on the dollar is going to be coming lower. So that means investors naturally will seek the safety of gold, because there's no point in holding on to dollars when you can get an appreciation in gold because the interest rates on the dollar are coming down, which means that investors won't be generating as much of a return on fixed income assets like bonds. So it's going to be a very interesting one to see how gold is going to play out. In other news, which is what I'm going to be talking about right now before we get into a little bit of cryptocurrency, is this discussion right here. U.S. equity, courtesy of the Kabesi letter, says here, U.S. equity ETF and mutual fund inflows reached a record 186 billion over the last 9 weeks. That is a lot of money going into ETFs. Now, remember, the ETF market itself currently, when we last spoke about this, I think it was about 6-7 weeks. About 2-3 months ago. There's around about $6.5 trillion stuck in money markets. Why? Because investors are trying to work out whether they should remove the money from there and then go into higher risk on assets. Well, they may have missed the boat with regards to that, which is why the NASDAQ and the S&P just keep on marking higher and higher. Just to draw your attention to the NASDAQ and the S&P, you can see, look, we've got a gap up in the NASDAQ at the highs. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a blow off top in my opinion. This is unbelievable with the NASDAQ trading at 22,365, like gap ups, and they have been doing several gap ups as well. You see this gap right here, this got recovered, and then they had another gap here, which they haven't quite recovered just yet. And then we've also got this main gap right here that the NASDAQ hasn't recovered. So gaps in the futures markets usually end up getting recovered, guys, and that could lead us into what could happen going into the Bank of Japan's press conference. And you know what? The expectation is that they could be increasing the interest rates. But Bank of Japan usually tend to be a little bit delayed in what they do. It's all going to be revealed tomorrow based on how dollar yen behaves. If dollar yen can sustain itself and continue higher, then that's going to lead the Bank of Japan to really do something about it, because it's going to hurt their trade if the dollar against the yen is trading much more stronger. That effectively means that the yields on the Japanese yield and the US yield themselves, they are sort of getting closer and closer, and that doesn't really serve Japan because they want more investors to come in and borrow their yen. But if they have to intervene and start pumping liquidity into dollar yen to effectively bring the dollar down, then that means they're going to have to bring up something to pay for that cost. And the only way they do that is by increasing the interest rates on the back of the Japanese yen. So this right here is very important to understand about how much commitment's coming into the ETFs. Looking at what's going on in terms of ETFs, I've got this right here, which is showing you the last 30-day net cash inflow. Where's it going? Right there, iBIT. It's Bitcoin, man. Bitcoin is just bringing the flavor. And look at this significant move to the upside right there. 55, I think it was about, 58% right now. It's marking up a return. This is what the return that you're getting on Bitcoin. It's just absolutely wild. And then we go to the top 30-day return on the ETFs themselves. So wait a second. Here we go. Yeah, look at this. Like you're just seeing everyone's playing defiance, daily targets. We got quite complex in the ETFs coming into play right now that we've got here. But ladies and gentlemen, it's all happening. The US ETF market is just exploding right now. And it's just quite scary given that the bond market itself, let me just refresh this. Come on. Where are we at? Why is this taking forever? I don't understand this. It's not doing it. It's not doing it. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there it is. So iShares Core US Aggregate Bond ETF, that's going up, and we're seeing lots of activity there. And this is what's getting me concerned, is people going to the bond on the ETF itself and not going directly to the bonds themselves. Something's not brewing. It looks like investors are getting a better rate of return going into bond ETFs than they are the actual US bonds themselves. So that could really tell you what's going on with liquidity, how it's starting to be maneuvered around the FOMC and the Bank of Japan press conference. But let me draw your attention to something right here. It says in this article over here that Nvidia is starting to show a sell signal, okay? Now we go over to Nvidia itself, and we need to pay attention to Nvidia because Nvidia is the heavyweight across the board. Currently sat around $3.75 trillion worth of market, no, $3.5 trillion worth of market cap. That's obviously been shaved right now, but Nvidia is looking like it's trading lower. We have got a little bit of a gap down going into the open, trading at $129 a share. Now, we've got Jensen speaking on the 6th of January. He's going to be a speaker which will bring volatility for Nvidia. So I believe this could be an accumulation phase because a lot of small cap stocks are leading NASDAQ right now. So we go over to it. You can see yesterday's price action. It says here, text lead advanced, but breadth mixed. So it was a little bit mixed across the board. Volume was up for the NASDAQ yesterday and for the New York Stock Exchange. Dow was trading negatively and the S&P was barely moving up itself. But with that being said, we've got to really pay attention to the fact that if AI really has hit its peak, I mean, after the speaking event that Jensen's going to be having on the 6th of January regarding Nvidia, then that leads us over to the idea that there is a possibility that things might be slowing down. And the only thing that I can look at is this. Right now, this is the semiconductor industry index versus the revenue, okay? So what can you see here? You can see the red line is effectively the revenue year on year, and it's starting to go down, okay? Now you can see the index itself is trading high because stocks are all moving up. Investors are coming in, but the revenue is not behind it to back it. So it does mean that from a fundamental perspective, companies in the semiconductor index itself, they're not backing or justifying their price action. If the revenue is coming down, that means that the imports and the export story might be slowing down too. Here's this chart. Shows you the exports by country. You can see here that China and Hong Kong, they've got an increase in the exports, okay, naturally. But you've got US itself. That's coming down. And then you've got the ASEAN, I don't even know what that is. I've forgotten what that is again. But you're seeing a little bit of a contraction happening in regards to exports, okay? And if there is a slowdown in the exports, that means there is a slowdown in other things as well, like the revenue, which can only lead to what? In other words, when stocks are appreciating in the semiconductor index, take what you can because fundamentally, there's nothing backing that story of them going up. So it's a price action play, all right? So that's something you've got to take into consideration when you are looking into semiconductors. Quick time over to crypto. The Ethereum Foundation has dumped another 100 ETH for $420,000. These guys seem to be dumping Ethereum all the bloody time. But going into Ethereum price action right now, just have a look at where she is over there. See, Ethereum's been doing all right. It's a bit of a slow climb to the upside. It's trying to reclaim this 4,000 mark, but it's trading sideways. And I think Ethereum's probably going to be trading sideways today because FOMC is really the only time that the market has to really maneuver away from specific zones. So this could be seen as a consolidation in preparation for a move to the upside or even a move to the downside. It's all going to be relevant to what happens during the FOMC itself. Okay, now with that being said, there is speculation that we're going to get a Solana and a Ripple and Cardano ETF. Some of the speculation behind it is it just talks about its market cap and Ripple with its latest release of the, well, it's due, I think it's today, of the stable coin. All right, so that's going to bring a lot of volatility for XRP. We go over to XRP right now and you can see it is up nearly 7% for the day. It's doing pretty well, this coin, man. Someone would think it was a good asset to buy. Ha ha. Moving on from that, here we go. Japan's Microstrategy issues another 4.5 billion yen bonds to buy Bitcoin. In other words, around $30 million worth of Bitcoin. So that's looking kind of good. So you've got this wild purchasing happening with Michael Saylor, Microstrategy, and then Japan's version of it as well. Says the Asian Microstrategy Metaplanet Incorporated has announced the issuing of the 4th series of ordinary bonds worth 4.5 billion yen. So roughly around $30 million to purchasing more Bitcoin. So naturally, you think that's going to be helping Bitcoin? Probably, and more than likely it will. Going into Bitcoin's price action right now, you can see it's starting to trail to the upside. Ethereum seems to just not really do the flavor. I'm looking at Ethereum. It looks like it's Bitcoin's day. And it is moving ever so slightly away from the 5 and 13 EMA. And from a technical perspective, if Bitcoin is trading above the 5 and 13 EMA, which are these two lines here, the yellow line and the red line on the 1 hour time frame, short-term day traders could assume that the momentum is starting to favor higher prices. But if you do see price break the 5 and 13 EMA, just be very mindful because it could be deemed as a stop run. At the same token, if the 5 and 13 EMA cross over the 50 EMA, it would then tell us that momentum is changing to the downside. Rolling on from that logic, we've got the order flow on Bitcoin right here. Let me just bring that up for you just to understand where we are in terms of the order flow. So looking on the top left here, we've got Bitcoin trading towards the value area high. Hasn't really generated that much interest, but we do have a little contract here of 84 contracts trying to sell Bitcoin. Not really getting that much, but looking at the top side of the book, we've got 174 Bitcoin at the top side at 107,986, with nothing really showing interest at 108,000. So that's got my attention just a little bit. Going over into Bitcoin's price action in terms of order flow, just quickly bring that up for you to have a look at where people are selling, buying and selling Bitcoin. So we've got quite a few liquidation points right here, which are very interesting. At the same time, we've got some orders that want to sell Bitcoin, $9 million of Bitcoin to be sold at 107,789. And then we've also got 12 million at 107,877. Yesterday on Ethereum, there was an order at around 4,025 for 86 million Ethereum. Okay, so that was a massive set. No, not Ethereum. I think it was Bitcoin. It was $86 million worth of Bitcoin to be sold. It was around just before it claimed the high and the move from yesterday. So we know there are participants trying to get rid of Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin at a nice premium price. Going into the order book itself, I'm not really seeing anything coming into play around the 108,000. Yeah, just before you got 1.79 million, then you got 6 million at 108,000. So it's not really giving me flavor to say, yeah, there's going to be enough people wanting to sell the Bitcoin, but retail needs a reason to start buying the Bitcoin, okay? And this could be one of the reasons that they could do that. The EU is trying to effectively push the idea of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which makes me think that if you've got China and you've got US, well, US is trying to do the run for the Bitcoin reserve, okay? Now you've got the EU Parliament trying to do the same thing. So it's either the digital euro or Bitcoin reserve. Could you imagine you've got the Eurozone and you've got the US fighting for this Bitcoin reserve story? Nothing's stopping them. It's just a case of who's going to be buying the most of it. And then you've got this dude right here still holding out, doing the refresh of Arkham to see where we are with the ETF itself. 534,000 still. Have they been selling? No, they've been doing very well to retain this logic right here. So that's looking promising as well. Not really seeing any sales happening. Coinbase has been a bit busy. Wintermute stepped in as well and picked up some Bitcoin. Going into other news itself, you've got this story about the quantum computing and Google. How far are we from Bitcoin's actual code getting cracked? Well, when you think about it, Satoshi made that wallet with 1 million Bitcoin. No one successfully hacked it yet. So, I mean, it does say that we're probably going to be looking at it. It could happen in a few decades' time. We've still got decades, and that's the word on the street. So we don't need to worry about it. By that time, just make your money and get out just before it actually cracks the code for it. Back on quantum computers, man, Israel's trying to roll out its first domestically made quantum computer. That's very interesting. So we've had AI being the rally of everything, okay? Now we're going to a different division of AI. We're going to quantum computing. Remember, Nvidia, they want to get into humanoid robotics. They want to start looking at vehicles as well. Tell me why Nvidia wouldn't get involved in quantum computers. Naturally, that's what everyone expects. Look what happened with ChatGPT, okay? OpenAI comes out with it, yeah? Google wants to come out with one. Microsoft wants to come out with one. Twitter, X comes out with one. Everyone wants to bring out their own version of it. Naturally, that's what's going to happen with quantum computers. Everyone's going to bring out their own version. Why? Because it's called competitive edge. That's what happens in business. Give me a reason to buy your product as opposed to someone else's. And that's what keeps businesses moving. Competitive edge. The research and development that these guys are going to put into quantum computing is only going to be favored to companies that are involved or trading on the NASDAQ as quantum computers. I mean, we've got loads of guys that are on the, well, not loads, but there are a few companies that do trade on the US stock market that are based on quantum computers. So I'd probably spend a little bit of time looking at those guys. Just search for quantum computer stocks. You understand what I'm talking about? Santa rally. Is it going to happen? Well, let's just look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's pumping up right now. 107,652. Looks like a nice little promise. I mean, another all-time high. Are we going to keep smacking records? Because quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, from now going into FOMC, you've effectively got, from now going into, I'd say tomorrow morning New York session, the first hour or two of the markets, that's when I think everything will just die down, if it doesn't die down from now, okay? After tomorrow, you'll know exactly where you stand with your investments. Interest rates are going to be lower. Fed pivot. The prospect of them cutting in the future is going to be revealed. I want to know how they're going to address inflation. I want to know how they're going to address the idea of the yields continuing up. I want to know if Bank of Japan are going to cut their rates or are they going to increase their rates? That's going to dictate if investors should be using their dollars or getting rid of risk, which would naturally bring everything down. So are we in the midst of a blow off top? If we are, make sure you are taking something off the table, okay? Just put something in your pocket. No one went broke taking a profit. No one did, okay? So just take that into consideration when you are trading. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? We got any questions? Tito, how do new versus old contracts impact NQ? The old contracts are like companies or traders who have still got exposure in those contracts, bigger exposure, and they just have to slowly unwind them. But the new contracts is the future expectation of price. So the old contracts might still be in line with it or not. So just make sure you are renewing your futures contracts when you are trading the futures markets. I hope that's what you meant. If return is the only concern, is it best to buy Bitcoin or one of the ETFs? It's all relative. What kind of risk do you want? Bitcoin is subject to price action all the time. The ETFs are not. You go over to the actual ETF of Bitcoin itself, and you can see currently right now it's trading, it's gapped up, but the open will see a gap up on the ETF. Okay. We might even get an update on any purchases that have come into play with the ETF. But you've got to ask yourself, how much more of something can you buy? Can you buy more Bitcoin? Okay. Or can you buy more of the ETF? When it comes to ETFs, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to look at it. See, cryptocurrency works like this, right? And this is how I understand cryptocurrency. In cryptocurrency, if we look at it as an environment, right? What is a defense-based stock or a defense-based asset, okay, that will protect you from volatility? It's either getting out of the exposure of holding a coin, so Bitcoin, sell it, and sit in USDT. That's the only defense that you've got with it, all right? Whereas when you play ETFs, ETFs are effectively a basket of assets. That basket could be made up of 20% bonds. So you know fixed income securities right there, low risk, defense-based stocks as well, like Lockheed and Martin. You've got all those aerospace and defense companies. So an ETF that is made up of that. Then you want to go to the high risk guys where you've got US equities or the Magnificent Seven. You've got the iShares Paris Saint-Germain ETF from BlackRock. That's just made up of the major tech companies. That would be a very volatile asset class to be in. But as of late, they've been killing it. So you're seeing great returns on that. So ETFs themselves give you the opportunity to be really diverse and try and eliminate exposure. In crypto, they don't really have that. I mean, you've got this thing right here, which is the CoinMarketCap 100 index, which is top 100 companies or top 100 coins based on market cap as such. And you can see it's trading relatively well. And we've got a list of all these coins right here, top 100 coins. You could make the assumption that if one's not doing well, the other one will be, but that's not always the case. It's either Bitcoin is up, the altcoins are down, or Bitcoin is up, the altcoins are up, okay? So I think if we can get to a point where you've got altcoins that really do buck the trend, and there could be altcoins out there that do act as defense-based principles. I mean, we've got one already. It's XRP, man. That is a defense-based stock. Think about it. It didn't go anywhere for the best part of nearly 25 months, whatever it is. Hold on a second. Let's just quickly never mind. Look, just have a look at this, right? For the 4-month chart, right? Well, there you go. Look at the weekly chart. That right there. Just this here. That for me is like an ETF, like a bond ETF. Doesn't really do too much, but you can lock value into it. You might think I'm absolutely bat crazy, making the assumption that XRP could have been behaving like a fixed income security, like a bond, but its price action was giving you that. And people were of the impression that that was the case with it. Okay, even myself. Now, of course, it's exploded. Obviously, things have been developing with XRP. It's a different story now. Volatility's coming. More hands are playing it. More hands are selling it and what have you. So you've got to really say to yourself, okay, we're coming away from that logic because XRP could effectively stay like this. It could just trade sideways and the $2 will be the new 50 cent. But with the way XRP behaves, there's a good chance it's going to come back down into this huge accumulation zone. But that will be for another time anyway. All right, so go back into Bitcoin, 1 hour time frame, what we at with time. Market is just about to open, so we're going to see some form of volatility coming into play. Bitcoin currently creating the brinks, 107, 646, going into some more order flow. Still not really getting that break up. Now that order's changed to 116 as well, 149 on the offer side of Bitcoin. Ethereum sat at the point of control with a lot of contracts, 93,000 contracts, which is quite a bit. But she's actually hugging the VWAP itself with the potential for a sweep to the upside to claim all the daily highs. So that could be something that could be happening very, very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Any other questions? Irish Dutchman, there, if you are a platinum member, pinned to the top of the chat in the Discord, there is an Excel sheet which shows you, in my opinion, the masterclasses that you really want to be focusing on. Okay, but there's checklists in there as well that will help you understand how to take the platinum trade setups when we give them out, and just little reminders. There's a wealth of information in that Excel sheet itself. You know what? I'm going to have a look to see if I've got it here, just to show you exactly what it is. Wait there. I don't believe it. Here we go. So here is an example of it. So there are a list of the Excel of the masterclass sessions that I've said that will give you the idea of whether you are a scalper or a swing trader, who is it suited for. Okay. Then we've got the important posts right here, which shows you high probability trade setups that I've done, that I think that you can use, the setups themselves. Block trade principle, opening range, my trading approach is done right there. Stopping volume candles, and then the checklists. These checklists right here. Setups, vectors, V-shapes, scaling, eyes inventory, red vector candle strategy, block trade, Brinks box strategy, and breaking down the macros. So this one right here pretty much shows you how to understand and interpret the logic of the data that comes out and the data that we're looking for every single day in the marketplace. All right. That's what you get when you become a platinum member. You get access to this, and you get the access to the masterclass sessions as well. Okay. If you want that, just go to the pin to the top of the chat is the link for the platinum membership. So go check that out, ladies and gentlemen. So it looks like Bitcoin is doing a nice move. That 108 could be on the cards right now. Any other questions? The market is now open. Here we go. That's what I call the VWAP. Where did you get that sheet from, please, Tino? I made the sheet. I created this sheet. Each one is a post. It's a weekly review. That's what I do for the platinum members. I do a weekly review, and it discusses strategies. And people have been using these checklists, and it speaks for itself. They refer to it all the time. So right now we're going into the Brinks box, okay? And the Brinks box strategy itself tells you that you got to wait until 3 p.m., which is 10 a.m. Eastern Standard. That thing right there, the Brinks box strategy, gives you a breakdown of what to look out for when you are trading the Brinks box strategy itself. Did I see something from RTB? RTB, top man. Mad love to you, my bro. 15 membership, so some of you lucky guys have got that flavor. ETH is going to be clear all-time high January the 1st. Okay, that's good news. Euro USD big contracts expiry. That is true. Euro's getting smacked about, to be honest with you guys, because of what's going on with the yields on the dollar. And listen, if you're trading Euro, just be careful, man. It's trading sideways. Ain't going to be going nowhere until FOMC is done, I think. And it always does this. It always bloody does this. And I just get frustrated with it at best of times as well. Okay. Oh, my days. Wow. I just need to look at something. That is a story. That is a story and a half. This is a list of quantum stocks. Mad love, V. So, yeah. These are quantum-based stocks. Very interesting stocks. So have a little gander at those bad boys right there. Okay. Quickly go back into Bitcoin. Come on, give me something, Bitcoin, just before we make the move. Wouldn't allow any more than $1 due to first super chat. Colin Lawrence, what's going on? Anything else, guys? Any other questions? Give me something. Give me something before we go. Why do camels... Nah, man. At what time is the rate cuts announced of Bank of Japan? It's tentative, which means it's going to be in the evening. So once the Japanese markets open, that's when you really want to have your eyes peeled and your ears peeled and your eyes open for it. They do not give a time. Okay. It's just whenever it's going to be revealed. When they say, you know what? Yeah, we've had 2 coffees this morning. Let's get with the flavor and actually do this conference. So they'll go and do that. It's the one bugging thing about it all. There's no fixed time for it. When do you think the market will turn? 110,000 is a significant point for me. It's a psychological point. There is liquidity up there. Go over to 110,000. Where we at? Let me know. Here we go. You got liquidity at 110. Well, that's 111. Sorry. Oh, no, they've moved it. Oh, wow. There was actually an order for 35 million to be sold at 110. It's been pulled. It has been pulled. So, yeah, I think 110,000 could be the blow off top. Tomorrow's volatility could bring that. It's only $2,000 away. All right. And I would expect some profit taking coming into play with Bitcoin, which then by FOMC itself, it could come hit 110,000 and then retrace back into the sub 105s. And then whatever the plan of action is by the Federal Reserve and what have you, then we'll understand if the 100K region is going to sustain itself. We said that the 60K could be the new 20K. They proved that that's going to be the case. Could the 100K be the new 20K? In other words, the psychological impact and its holding of Bitcoin. All right. So Bitcoin really just needs to keep on going as high as it physically can until FOMC. And with the FOMC, the expectation of interest rates being cut is being welcomed across the board. So there could be even more volatility to Bitcoin. It could clear the 110 and then 110, 500 and then pull straight back down from that zone. So just make sure you're doing something about profits when you do see that actually, if it does actually happen or not. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed today's live stream. Make sure you like, subscribe, and all that fun and games. But remember, tomorrow is the FOMC meeting itself. It's one of the biggest lives, so make sure you're there tuning in for that. I'll be sending you reminders regardless, all right? So I'll be seeing you all later on this evening. Let's see what happens today. Mad love and respect. Peace.